This is the Surly Grognards for August 4th, 2014. This is Peter Bowman, and as usual, I'm joined by my good friend and co-host, Eric Carlson. How are you doing today, Eric?
I'm doing all right.
Excellent, excellent. So, this week we have an actual topic. I'm scared.
I am. This is the doom of everything is what this is.
Like, it's a topic that, we didn't just come up with off the top of our heads. This was suggested to us by Beck on the forums. Thank you, Beck. We appreciate it.
We love that stuff.
Yes. So, Beck asks the following. If you're running a game in an established setting, Iron Kingdoms, any number of D&D settings, Shadowrun, etc., how much of that setting should you put into your game? Specifically, what guidelines should be set for players' interaction with established characters or storylines so that they don't overshadow the players, but the players still feel like they're part of the setting that those events and characters are an important part of?
Yeah, that's a rough one. Everyone's going to do it different.
Yep. Here's the thing. There is no actual right answer to this. But there are some guidelines I do like to sort of... I personally would like to stick by for this sort of thing. Okay, so point the first. I very, very rarely run games in established universes. I prefer coming up with my own game worlds. It's just one of those things. I enjoy doing it. I love world building. And I always think it's more satisfying for me if I'm running a game in my own world. That said, I have done so on more than one occasion. I've run a game in an established world on more than one occasion. See the Iron Kingdoms game I'm running on Saturdays on stream.
Whee!
But I've done it a couple of other times here and there. Feng Shui, of course.
Yep.
I'm trying to think what else I've done. I've run games in various D&D settings over the years.
I know you've... Well, I haven't played in it. I know you've run both the Champions established setting and Star Wars.
I haven't actually run Star Wars. I've played Star Wars.
I could have sworn you would run Star Wars at some point.
Nope. I was a player in a Star Wars D6 game.
Oh, okay.
The old West End game, Star Wars game. I was a player in that game. I didn't actually run it. I started setting up a Star Wars game using the West End Games D6 system in college.
Ah, right.
That never really got off the ground. Had a few players for it, and then we ended up doing something else. I have run using the official Champions universe, but usually with several alterations of my own because, I like world building, as I've mentioned. And they're always... The other thing is, for me, is in most game worlds, there's always something in there I look at and go, I wouldn't do that in my game world. It just doesn't suit the way I think about game world design and such. But yeah, I have done it before, and I've always made changes. As I said, I've basically always made changes. Partially just so that I can keep the players on their toes to a degree. Especially for players who know the setting in depth. And occasionally I'll do changes in game settings where the players know more about it than I do. Looking at you, Iron Kingdoms.
What?
It's almost like Eric knows more about Iron Kingdoms than I do.
No, that's impossible. No, that never happened.
So, Eric, how often do I ask you for? Does this sound like it makes sense within the context of Iron Kingdoms to you?
A lot.
And why do I ask that question?
Because shut up.
Oh God! So yeah, I always make changes for numerous reasons. There are games. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
I think that's to be expected. I mean, it's the game master's game. Unless you're running purely shit out of like modules and the like, then you have to assume the game master is going to make some changes to the established setting.
Yeah. I would say, as a general rule of thumb, that's definitely accurate. I know people who don't, or try not to. And I can sort of understand that to a degree.
Well, that's sort of where I am. I try to change as little as possible. I'm going to make a few changes for the sake of story and whatnot.
Right.
but I'm also of the opinion you're running an established world. Use those resources.
Yep,
You know.
that's a great reason for that. You've got the resources, use them. I mean, but yeah, so yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that as a general rule of thumb, you're going to make some changes. But the question is, how much are you going to change? And actually, back to the question, one of the questions in there is sort of the guidelines. What sort of guidelines you want to have for the players' interactions with established characters or storylines? Because as Beck brings up, you don't want to overshadow the players,
Right.
but you do still want them to feel like they're part of the world.
And usually what I do is, in the case of, say, the Tuesday on Kingdoms game, I run a section of the world where not a lot of where shit happens, but not a lot of information is published. And I'll drop hints about things going on in the actual official storyline, or have drop hints that so and so is here, which people may or may not get, mostly for my own amusement. um, but yeah, like there's nothing that says you can't say, for example, stop an insidious plot to take over Five Fingers from the ground up by the Cephalax, and just not have it be a big, like, worldwide plot.
Right.
Like, there's no, like, you stump. The plot was they stumbled upon an nascent attempt to take over the slums of Five Fingers using a mind control drug by horrible brain raping monsters from underneath the ground.
Yep.
And yeah, they stopped it before it got too big and before governments had to get involved.
Yeah, we got lucky.
Yeah, and that was the that was one of the storylines, and it was a big game-changing thing because it had potentially hugely far-reaching implications.
Yep.
They saved the world. They just did it before anyone had to notice.
And I really like that sort of thing. I mean, I've dropped a few things here and there in the Iron Kingdoms game I've been running on Saturdays.
Right.
I'm guessing you've picked up on some of them.
Yeah, a few. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but also I might be wrong. But
Well, I'm curious, Eric. What do you think is actually going on?
I think what's happening is that someone is attempting to gather up a whole bunch of spooky artifacts for use for their own use, using the Order of Illumination as a cover.
Okay.
And the Grey Lords have caught wind of it, and instead of stopping them, have gone, we should do the same thing. because Grey Lords, that's what they do.
Yeah. And that is one perfectly valid interpretation of what's going on.
Right. And yeah, until it becomes obvious what's going on, I'm not going to make any steps one way or the other because, well, this is entirely player knowledge that knows more about the world than my character does.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. So, like, but as to these sort of, important characters and storylines, like, I mean, we both have dropped hints about some of the things that are going around in the world out there. The whole thing
Right.
with Point Born. So the ongoing sort of war between.
Between everyone, but
Well, yeah,
everyone but Ord.
everyone but Ord and Rule, technically.
Yeah.
We're both sitting there going, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
Well, Ord's going, okay, if we're really, really careful, we could totally profit off of this. And Rule is going, fucking humans.
Yeah. Yep.
But both, I totally appreciate.
I can see where you can see easily where both of them are coming from.
Yes.
But beyond that, I mean, I really haven't dropped any of the established characters in because.
Well, partially because some of the established characters would just roll us.
Yeah, but it's not even just that they'd roll you. It's just that they are such big, important characters that they would inherently warp
They
the
dominate the storyline.
right. Like
Like,
if for instance, Victoria, if Haley showed, Captain Commander Haley or whatever her rank is at this point, Major Haley showed
which
up,
is major, yeah.
a lot of shit. It would mean a lot of shit's going down.
Yeah, and that would be completely like that would overshadow everything that we're doing.
Right.
We wouldn't be important anymore.
You'd be much less important at very least,
Yes.
unless she specifically came and like asked you guys, like recruited you guys to do something in particular.
Which could be cool, but at the same time, I'd feel kind of as a player, I'd be like, really? Okay, I'll give it a shot. But I'd feel a little. I don't know. I'm not sure how to say it.
Yeah, I know. And I'm not going to do that because.
Right.
But like I might drop hints that Haley is operating in this particular area and shit's going down there. And if you guys want to get involved, that's up to you guys.
Right.
And the answer is probably for your own self-preservation, probably
No,
not.
probably not.
Because if Haley's involved, it probably means critics in large numbers.
Yeah.
This is all world-specific stuff, obviously. If you don't know
Yeah,
about Iron
obviously.
Kingdoms,
None of this makes any bloody sense.
But
You're just like, someone named Haley and cricks like in the neck, like a crick in the neck.
long story short, basically, there are big important characters in Iron Kingdoms, and most of them have very specific goals and agendas. And if they get involved in the campaign in any way, the campaign will start being about that.
Right.
Now, it varies by game and what type of how important you want that to be. A counterexample to that is a lot of time when I'm running Feng Shui, I will start dropping some of the established characters in there a fair bit.
Right.
And that's partially because the player characters in Feng Shui, even more so than the Iron Kingdoms characters, are definitively badasses.
Yeah. You're playing a big damn hero for
Right.
a reason.
And I mean, Iron Kingdoms you are to a degree. I mean, player characters are badasses to start off with in Iron Kingdoms.
Yeah.
Feng Shui mechanically, not much. They are probably more powerful than an Iron Kingdoms character relative to the game world. In fact, they are.
Right.
But the big difference is sort of the whole point with Feng Shui is it is the player character story. But there are big names out there that you're going to need to interact with as part of the big damn epic plots that Feng Shui generally has. So, throwing Karfai, the leader of the dragons, in front of the player characters, trying to recruit them into the dragons, makes a lot of fucking sense. Especially since the dragons have suffered, canonically within the storyline of Feng Shui, the dragons, who are basically the only faction of actual good guys.
Well, the Jammers are good guys. They got monkeys.
Eric, the Gemmers are not good guys.
I know the Jammers are not good guys. I know the Jammers are bad people.
The Gemmers are anarchists, are nihilist anarchists.
But with cybernetic monkeys, that definitely moves their alignment 2 pips over.
Aha. Yeah, so, but the big thing about it is that the dragons, the sort of hero group, have basically gotten badly, stomped recently. So they need to recruit new blood, and that's sort of the general. That's one of these sort of general assumed starting points for a Feng Shui game is that that's a good hook point, and that gets you introduced to a lot of the big players that you're going to interact with. And I'll throw a lot of the big names out there out at the players because a lot of the game is there's trying part of the thing that our heroes are trying to do is trying to make the world a better place and trying to maneuver some of the big cheeses into positions where they will either do less harm or maybe actually help somewhat.
As shocking as that concept is to them.
Right. So, that's a tricky thing to balance, but it works out fairly well in Feng Shui just because of the scope of what the player characters are and what they do.
On the other hand, in, say, Shadowrun, if you're dealing with the big players, the big cheeses in that universe, the players shouldn't know.
Right.
And or if the players do figure it out, their characters shouldn't know until after the fact, and they go, "Oh, that fuck you, Loftware." And
Right.
that can actually be, when that happens, that's actually a really cool moment. Because you've been manipulated into like some power struggle of giant epic proportions, either financially, mystically, or both in the case of the previously mentioned dragon. And you totally helped them out and got paid $50 in a sandwich for it. Because everyone in Shadowrun are dicks. I'm just going to point that out.
Yeah, pretty much. And Beck in the chat actually mentions that in the Slayers game that we were doing on the stream, I did drop some of the some named characters in there briefly.
Yes.
Specifically, I dropped in the 2 bounty hunters from the first season, Zangulis and Vermigund. Because I thought it would be funny.
Yeah.
That's the entire reason I did it. And you know what? It was.
It was funny. At the same time, it's not like we're like hanging out in the bar with Lena and Gowry. It's like two pseudo antagonists,
Right.
who aren't even the main antagonists.
Right.
Yeah, that's cool.
That is the level at which I want to go. I could, in theory, drop some like one of the main casts on you in a scene with you guys briefly, but I don't really want to. I honestly, the one I would consider doing, there's only one sort of main cast character I would consider using. Bet you can guess who it is, Eric.
Is it Amelia?
No.
No, it's Sylphiel.
Well, no, actually, no. Amelia, I could see using Amelia also because of her actual position.
Right.
Given that she's actually a princess and she actually could, like, you know, realistically be like contracting adventurers out to go do something important. That could happen.
It'd be really funny for Zarkov to be totally tongue-tied around her.
Yes, I think it'd be awesome, and kind of wish I'd done that now. No, but the character I was thinking of was Zelos.
Yeah. Okay.
Again, antagonist.
Totally like, hey, I've got like all this spare cash floating around. Lena isn't dragging me off to save the world at the moment. You guys go do research for me.
Well, no, Zelos, you know, the mysterious priest.
Oh, right. Sorry.
Not Zelgadis.
Wrong Z.
The X, not the Z.
Wrong Z noise. Right.
Your favorite character in the series, Eric.
I knew that.
But yeah, like Zelos.
Since I've seen the show, sorry.
Fair point. But yeah, Zelos is a great, is one of those NPCs that you could use as a sort of a way to drive the plot.
And I could totally see him pulling now I disguise myself, and I send you off onto this wild goose chase to benefit me or for my own amusement, and I'll pay you $5 in a sandwich when it's done, because fuck you, Loftware.
Yeah. It's like, honestly, in the game that I was running, he could have been entirely behind, what's her name's, I can't remember the name of the female monster you guys were dealing with.
Right.
He could have entirely been behind what she was up to.
Oh yeah, I kind of honestly suspected that.
Yep. It's entirely possible. I hadn't actually decided.
Right.
She had backers. I hadn't fully decided who they were yet. Nominally speaking, she was working for Lord Beastmaster, but which I did mention.
Which you did mention, which more or less confirmed it in my mind, honestly.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Eric. Nope, not at all. But yeah, like there was definitely stuff that, like, plot stuff was happening in the background in that game. Like Slayer's plot stuff was happening in the background during the game you guys were playing.
Right.
I dropped hints of that occasionally. Like I mentioned the weird shit that was going on in Cyrag.
Yep.
Because this was basically between the first season and the second season was when I was setting things. So
we're like, weird shit going on over there, huh?
If you'd ever gone up
to have to go there.
If you ever went up to Cyrag, you'd have found out. You would have seen what was going on there, and it'd been fucking creepy.
And I would have had to punch everything if I had figured it out. Zarkov wasn't terribly bright.
Yeah, well, you guys would have basically you would not have been able to change much of
That's never stopped Zarkov.
True. True. You did try to punch once. You did try to punch the Mazuko in the face, and succeeded.
Because awesome. And unintentional suicidal tendencies.
Yeah. But yeah, there's having stuff like that, like little drops of stuff like that, really helps make the game world feel more like the actual game that the world that the players are expecting. Like, if you're running a Star Wars game, the players probably shouldn't run into Darth Vader. Just as a,
Right, but hearing about the ace that took down the Death Star was just in the bar. That could be pretty cool.
Right. You could, honestly, you could, having Boba Fett be an antagonist for a while. That would work.
Yeah. Or even one of the other bounty hunters, like
right.
Bosk or...
Honestly, it would work better with those guys.
Yeah.
Like, Bosk or IG-88 or something like that.
Yeah.
And our friend Peter Shaw in the chat mentions they certainly wouldn't meet Vader twice. No.
No.
But dropping hints about what's going on with the rebellion and all that stuff, that's great. But and you wouldn't want to drop in the most of the main characters from Star Wars, because again, sort of it's the same thing with the Slayer's characters. They
pull focus.
They pull focus, right? And that's sort of what you don't want the focus coming away from the player. Now, I can envision it being possible with some of them again to be able to pull it off. Like Leia's another one you could probably use. Again, because of her position within the rebellion.
Yeah. As sort of like a fixer or
right.
or what have you. Yeah. Or a handler or something.
Right. And if you went past, if you happen to set it after the original trilogy, Luke could be actually another good guidance, sort of figure of guidance and direction, and giving out questy type stuff.
Yeah.
Especially
be your handler.
Right. Or if someone's actually, if you're playing someone who's a Jedi, he's a good mentor.
Yeah.
Because there shouldn't be that many Jedi, because most of them are fucking dead.
Yeah, Luke's kind of like the last one. He's kind of not good at it right now.
Well, that's debatable.
Well, to be fair, he's better than any one of the friggin' Old Republic.
That's sort of my point. It's actually, honestly, Luke's is probably a better Jedi than any of the actual Jedi we've seen on screen, except maybe Obi-Wan.
Yeah. Because they all had their heads so far up their asses.
Yeah.
Seriously, that becomes really evident if you watch the CG Clone Wars cartoon. Which is really good, but it's really obvious exactly why the Jedi fucked up so badly.
Hell, it's obvious if you play any of the BioWare Star Wars games.
Yeah. No, it's it's clear that the Republic became the Empire because of the Jedi. Because they were that bad at their jobs.
Yeah, it's interesting. But yeah, so back to the whole sort of how much of the setting to use. For starters, basically as much as you can use without overshadowing the players is sort of the broad strokes way to phrase it. Because again, the players should be the stars of the show. It's their show. It's their movie. It's their novel. It's their comic book.
Right.
Whatever it is, it's their role-playing game. They are the stars. They should be the stars. If the players are not the stars of the game, that's actually something of a problem.
Yeah. And it can be cool to be it can be cool to be just a grunt in the machine.
Right.
But it has to be focused on those grunts in the machine.
Right.
You can have, Darth Vader come by and give commands to your platoon of stormtroopers, or Stryker stride by with his warjacks while your trenchers are holding up in the mud. That kind of deal. That can happen in the background. But
right.
That can't be, where the focus is.
Right. It depends entirely what the focus of the game is. So yeah, if you want a game about people who are sort of just like the grunts, as Eric said, works well as long as you plan for that.
Yeah.
And focus on on the sort of gritty details of that.
Yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. Just doing like a whole Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, like your characters just happen to be there for all these major beats in this world.
Right. That's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Like,
I think that'd be a fun campaign.
Right.
I wish I had thought of it when I started my game.
Oh dear lord. But like as it's something you have to plan from the start, and it will seem a little odd to the players at the beginning. But eventually they'll start realizing what's going on. And I think that almost works better in a game. I think it's weird. It works better and worse. There are elements that work really well within an established universe, but there are almost parts that work better if it's in a game world of the game master's designing, because the players won't know what's coming up.
I actually think the opposite. I think you want all the players to be at least as familiar with the world, so that they can go, "Oh, I get what's going on. Awesome! Let's stick our head back in for the artillery shoots it off."
Yeah, that's definitely an element. That's definitely cool. That's why I said that it both works better and worse.
Yeah.
There's the element of the players know what's going on, and that's really cool.
Yes.
But there's also it's missing the element of surprise about where the game's going.
Right.
Because over time, if the players are really familiar with the game world and you're sort of going along with the timeline, they're gonna suss out where things are going. And depending on where things are going, they may or may not try to completely avoid what's coming up, or change it. And if they can change it, that becomes a very cool game, in my opinion.
Yeah, actually.
Because all of a sudden, then they become actually important to the game world, and I think that's really cool. As most people who listen to the show know, I'm a big fan of. I prefer games where the player characters matter to the world as a whole. I prefer that scale of heroics.
Right.
The guys who don't have any actual impact on the world and are just sort of cogs in the machine. It's fun for a little while, but I would have trouble sustaining a game with that on that sort of premise.
I think it could be fun as long as, like you said, the players have to matter. But like just finding yourself in like one of those major plot points in the game world, and going, "Wow, cool! So we're the guys who distracted the stormtroopers so that Obi-Wan could disable the tractor beam, huh? Neat."
And that's fine. I mean, again, when I'm saying this, you have to remember.
Or even better, whoops, we totally were too busy talking and tanging off while Obi-Wan disabled the tractor beam. No wonder we blew up the Death Star got blown up.
Yeah.
That's actively funnier for me, honestly.
Oh, that's funnier. But yeah, I would definitely say that it's not an easy balance to get, as I said.
Right.
And I'm definitely not saying avoid playing established game worlds, because honestly, for newer game masters, that's a lot easier.
And there's something to be said about playing in someone else's sandbox. Like, I really enjoy playing in both Iron Kingdoms and Shadowrun and Feng Shui because it's someone else's sandbox.
Right.
And I get to fuck around with all the toys without worrying about breaking them or what the implications are going to be.
Right, because you can't permanently break the toys.
Exactly.
Right. Actually, I'd completely forgotten another game that I played in an established game. I've run in an established game world because I'm an idiot.
What was that?
Amber.
Oh yeah.
And let me just say this. The player characters interacted with the major characters from Amber. Do you know why? They're relatives.
Yeah.
They're their either parents or aunts and uncles. And the player characters are by that definition big movers and shakers, just by definition.
Uncle Random.
The odds are you probably want to refer to him as Your Majesty, since he's currently the king.
Uncle Random, I heard Uncle Corwin saying that you're a jerk. Well, that would be true. I am a jerk. I'm the king of Amber.
Oh, random. Turns out, nicest guy in the game, nicest guy in the universe. Well,
Does not mean he's not a jerk.
nicest of the Amberites. I should say the nicest, the best of the Amberites. Gerard is probably the nicest.
Yeah, yeah.
By the way, as we've said, as we both of us have said before, if you've not read the Chronicles of Amber by Roger Zelazny, we both highly recommend them.
Gerard's also the easiest to just use as a torpedo. Just point him in a direction and watch him go.
Well, it depends. Sort of.
Yeah, he just has to not know that you're doing it.
The problem is that if he figures it out, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Uh, it's easier and probably safer to try to do that with Gerard than it is with, say, I don't know, Benedict.
Yeah, because as soon as Benedict finds out, you're fucked. And Benedict's considerably more devious-minded than Gerard.
Yes.
But Gerard would be personally insulted. Benedict wouldn't take it personally.
No, he'd take it personally. Benedict doesn't like the political machinations that go on in Amber.
That's true. That's why he fucked off for so long.
Yeah. He's like, this is all stupid. Shut the fuck.
I'm leaving. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna hang out with some on some farm.
And if Amber gets in trouble, contact me. I'll be back to save all your asses because you know you'll need me. Because he's right. Because it's fucking Benedict.
Well, that's why I would have put an invisible assassin.
The hell? But of course, he would train to be attacked by an invisible assassin repeatedly, and you know exactly where they're likely to be, and he therefore stabbed exactly the right place.
Because he's Benedict.
Yeah, Benedict is ridiculous. Well, all the Amberites are ridiculous. That's sort of the point.
Yeah, all in their own way.
Even Flora, who is by and far the least powerful of the bunch. She's awesome.
She's just so damn likable, and that's her power.
She's a really interesting. Really interesting. Like in the second Chronicles, like you find out more about her.
Yeah.
Like, do you know she carries a hand grenade in her purse?
I think I remember hearing about that. Yes, or reading about that.
Because why not?
Yeah, because why wouldn't she? And the scary thing about Flora is that she's the most likable and the most underestimated, and that's a power all in to itself.
Well, yeah, she decided. Her basic plan, sort of, her position in the after the first arc, the first Chronicles, is that she basically takes a position of just as an advisor to Random. She realizes, right, I'm never going to be on the throne.
I really don't want to be.
Probably not, but yeah. At any rate, so we shouldn't talk too much about Amber. But
right.
So, but back to the whole sort of thing about how much of an established campaign world to use.
Here's the thing: except in very few circumstances, I'm never going to send the players up against an established character in their game world.
I'd agree with that.
Like, there's no reason you should be fighting the Butcher of Kardov. He's got better things to do.
Absolutely.
Than muck around with you guys. There's no reason why Grand Moff Tarkin should be out hunting for you guys. He's fucking Grand Moff Tarkin. He's got more important things to do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It's again, these characters will warp the game when they show up, and that can be a good thing in certain situations.
I suppose you could do like a short story arc where you've stumbled across, I don't know, Jason Bourne, and now he thinks he needs to kill you, and it's all about not getting killed by Jason Bourne.
Right. Oh yeah, like if you were doing exactly things like that, or or as ways to sort of not having them directly confront the characters, but having these important players showing up to basically show the characters some of the consequences of their actions.
Right.
Like, if you've been ignoring, like say it was an Iron Kingdoms game, you've been ignoring sort of subtle hints about Crick's threat or something like that. Having someone who, an important person who, having Major Haley come storming through an area with an army to deal with a Crick's threat,
Right.
tells the players, oh crap, we've been ignoring something important. And
Or you've been ignoring in your superhero game in the Marvel universe. You've been ignoring like these various like seemingly small time terrorism acts, and suddenly like friggin' Armin Zola and Hydra shows up.
right, exactly. But actually, the superhero game in an established superhero universe is one of the few times where you're going to interact with the established characters.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
Because the player characters will probably be on the same footing with a good chunk of the characters in that universe.
Like you're probably not going to be hanging out with Superman, but you're probably going to at least stop the occasional caper by, say, Captain Boomerang.
Honestly, I could easily see a DC set game where the player characters are members of the Justice League.
Maybe like Justice League Unlimited like type deal, yeah.
They could be, yeah. Assuming it's the league is expanded, that's a given.
The bit that like when it's really big,
which is fine, and and there's perfectly good reasons for them to be interacting with the big seven. I mean,
right? But there's no way I'd let them have a table at with the big seven. Like they don't get to sit in on that kind of shit.
the right sort of game, I'd have no problem with that.
Okay.
If I was planning a game where the player characters are supposed to be in a league with those guys, it's a perfectly valid way to do things. There's plenty of good superhero stories you can tell where the player characters are that important.
Yeah, at that point, I feel like you should be establishing your own world.
Well, I agree with that, but I can see that I still think I think that does work it does work in the actually it works better in Marvel. Like if the player's set up as a branch of the Avengers.
Yeah, because the Avengers has always been something of a revolving door anyway.
Right, but and they set up like their own. They set up the West Coast Avengers.
Yep.
There's no reason there couldn't be a group of Avengers who operate on the Gulf Coast
or the Midwest, or
right, exactly, or in Canada.
Well, in that case, it'd be a branch of Alpha Flight, honestly.
But what have you, or they could be a group of supers who work for Shield.
Yeah,
and are
that's
important.
A great option, and like, yeah, every once in a while they have to like deal with Captain America or Iron Man or Black Widow.
Yeah, or Colonel Fury or
yeah, Vision or. Listen, guys, all the other Avengers are busy dealing with this cosmic threat. Doctor Doom's pulling something, go deal with him. You want us to go deal with Doctor Doom? Yes. By deal, do you mean, like, we should bring a contract attorney? No. Oh, crap.
And honestly, that should be your reaction when you hear the name Doctor Doom.
Yes.
But again, the players should feel that, like, they should be able, in a Supers game, you should feel you should be able to at least thwart his plans.
Yes.
That's sort of the point of a superhero game. I mean, unless you're intentionally going for a street-level Supers game.
Yeah.
Like, Power Man and Iron Fist probably
not going to do too well against Doc Doom.
No. Not unless they bring in some friends. A lot of them.
Moon Knight, Thanos is causing trouble. Go deal with him. What?
Fuck you!
I'm a crazy man in pajamas. You want me to go deal with Thanos?
Yeah, well, yeah. You, as always, scale your threats appropriately to the player characters. Daredevil, go deal with Firelord. Fuck you!
I beat up gangsters. Seriously.
Who do you think I am, Squirrel Girl?
Squirrel Girl. I hope she gets her own movie at some point. That would be hilarious.
It would have to be. You can't.
Well, Squirrel Girl is entirely a comedic character anyway.
Yes, well, that's my point.
Like to the point where she beat up Thanos. Watu the Watcher goes, and thus you have defeated Thanos. And it was not an android or a clone or anything because I'm Watu and I'm saying so.
Oh, Squirrel Girl. So very silly. But yeah, so yeah, as always, the amount of interaction with the players have with the established characters and established events of a particular game world, will depend on the campaign. As I
Yes.
started the show off saying, uh, because it's going to vary. There's no right answer, as I said. You have to be comfortable with what you're doing, and you have to be sure that the player characters will be, the player characters will feel like they're still important and part of the game world.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Where were you going? I got distracted by something.
I don't know. I'm trying. I sort of my thought process sort of trailed off there a little bit, unfortunately. But yeah, so it's sort of one of those things. It's not easy to. It's hard to give like fully fledged guidelines per se.
Mm.
But I think we've sort of we've dropped some good advice in here.
Yeah, and yeah, like you want to go and have your people hanging out with like Doctor Doom and Vlad Zapetsky and Darth Vader form like a triumvirate of the most scary badasses in the multiverse. Go for it.
And honestly, that could be the context of a really interesting game. Weirdly, I could see that actually being a really interesting sort of way to be sort of an interesting thing to do in an Amber game,
Yeah, actually.
because that could actually happen. My head hurts. um, yeah. So, but and as always, it's all going to sort of hinge on your preferences as the game master and the preferences of the players also.
Yes.
I have seen groups who've run games in established universes. Often, the group in question I'm thinking of favored anime universes, and let's just say they interact with the protagonists a fair bit. Didn't sound from what I was hearing from them. It was at a local game store where a bunch of people were playing games, and from listening on it, it did not sound like a game I was interested in. But they all sounded like they were having fun,
And that's the important thing.
so yeah, like honestly, with some groups of players, like the thought of being able to interact with the like if it was set like if you were playing a game set in the One Piece universe, being able to interact with the Straw Hats could be exactly what the players want and what you want to do for as the game master, because you really want to actually have a chance to role play as some of the characters of the crew. Like the thought of getting to role play as Luffy amuses the hell out of you, and I really can't fault you for that.
I can. I'm not a big fan of One Piece.
I know you're not. I'm just saying, like, but you pick an anime series that you really like, like especially sort of an over the top, one where the main characters are
over the top crazy one. Like, yes, I'm gonna go and drive Gurren Lagann because shut up, Simone, get out of my mech. It's mine now.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that, but
Neither would I. But
there are groups of players for whom that would be the coolest thing ever. They would have a blast, and you know what? I really can't fault them.
yeah,
Well, I can, but I don't. It's one of those things like I look at that and I go, really? That's what you? Okay, have fun. I'm not running it.
yeah.
I'm not playing in it, so no skin off my back. So yeah, but I mean, like, I think that basically is going to cover what I can't think of much else to say about the topic, honestly.
Yeah, I think we pretty much covered it all.
Right. Let me quickly double check to see if there are any questions. If not, I've got a sort of a side topic that's sort of tangentially tied to this, and we can talk about for a little bit.
Okay.
Fortunately, I've got. No, we don't. Okay.
Is it
So-
is Is it about machine gun toting raccoons in
No.
space? Okay.
It could be sort of, I guess. But sort of what I was thinking of was like, what established universes do you honestly think would be actually fun and interesting games to play in, especially ones that aren't like ones that everyone does fairly often. So like like Marvel and DC comic book universes would be fun to play in, but that's been done.
Right. Um.
But like sort of established, like TV shows, movies, comic books, what have you.
Honestly, the Avatar world would be loads of fun to play in.
I'd agree with that. That's a good one.
Because God damn it, I want to throw rocks at people.
Yeah, and there's a lot of really cool things you could do with that.
And it's a really well fleshed out world too.
Yep. There are hosts of series, like anime series, I think would work well.
Yep.
For the right sort of group, I think Black Lagoon would be brilliant. So that world.
So the Tuesday Crew.
Yeah, probably.
Buffy would actually be a lot of fun to play in.
Oh, well, there's a Buffy RPG. So I mean,
Yeah, or Dresden Files. There's a Dresden Files RPG.
there's the Firefly universe. There's a Firefly RPG.
Most of the things we mentioned probably going to already have RPGs. I'm actually a little shocked that I haven't heard about an Avatar: The Last Airbender one.
I don't think there is one. So
Yeah.
but and I mean, like there are a bunch of for a bunch of the anime series out there, like the big ones, there have been like supplements published for them for various game systems.
Right.
But there are some things I think about. I like as much as I love the universe, I have trouble sort of thinking about exactly what I do in it for a role playing game. Like as much as I love Star Blazer / Space Battleship Yamato, I have trouble thinking about exactly how I'd set a game in that universe.
Yeah, that would be a tough one. Because you'd want to do it. I guess you could. I'd say do it on like an Earth ship that isn't the Yamato, but they all got blowed up. They're completely outclassed by the Gamelons.
You'd have to do it in a later. You'd have to do it after at very least after the first series. After the Gamelon, the Quest for Iskandar arc is over, and you probably would want to want to do it after the Comet Empire invasion, and after Earth had time to rebuild, and then proceed to completely ignore the Bolar Wars.
Yeah.
For many different reasons. The Bolar Wars are a lot of fun, but
Beck mentions Mass Effect. Mass Effect would be great to play in.
It's a great universe, and it'd be a very good universe to role play in.
And I dare you to try to stop me from playing Grogan.
I could do it.
How?
They've all died off due to the genophage.
Fuck you, I was in Special Snowflake or something, I don't know. No, playing a Krogan, shut up. You can't put the candy in front of me and not have me eat it.
Watch me.
No,
actually, your reaction probably be, well, I'm not playing then.
Yeah, honestly.
And I'd say, damn you, Eric! You found my weakness. Yeah, the thing is, I'd be more interested in playing in a Mass Effect game than running it, I think.
Yeah. Robotech would be a great. Oh, no, wait.
That suffers from the same problem that Yamato does.
You just said it after said it during the Reconstruction period. After the Zentradi have started to integrate, but you still have a lot of holdouts.
Yeah, you could do that. I mean, there are periods you can set it in, obviously.
Yeah, you just said it there, and you're part of the RDF, and you're helping put Earth back together and dealing with Zentradi rebels and holdouts. I think that could be a really fun game.
It could work, yeah. As I said, Yamato would work similarly if you set it at the right time period.
Yeah. But Yamato doesn't have friggin' jets that turn into robots, so... Or the power of J-pop.
That's a plus in my mind, Eric. Robotech does not have Minmay. Sorry, not Robotech. Yamato does not have Minmay.
Yeah,
or
but
Kylin.
Yamato doesn't have Britai, so...
Yeah, but it has Deathlock.
And no Veritex anywhere.
No, it has no giant robots. I agree with you on that, Eric.
Those are essential to the enjoyment of pretty much any form of media. You need to have giant robots somewhere.
Uh-huh. We're never going to agree on this one again.
He says, looking at his Dungeons and Dragons books.
Uh-huh. I wasn't going to say anything. Yeah, and Kaz, our friend Kaz in the chat mentions that the Yamato universe was supposed to be part of the same universe as the Captain Harlock universe.
That would actually be a pretty kick-ass universe to play in.
But,
doing the whole, like, Captain Harlock thing. And I guess you could make the argument that Fantasy Flight's Rogue Trader set in the 40k universe more or less is Captain Harlock, the RPG.
yeah, but I'd rather set it in the actual Captain Harlock or slash
Yeah.
Yamato universe.
Yeah.
For many reasons.
What, you don't want religious fanatics burning you for hanging out or talking with the Xenos in anything other than a frothing lunatic manner?
That would be one of the reasons, yes. And we both stated, actually, we both agreed, we mentioned this a couple weeks ago, that we both thought Log Horizon would work very well.
Yeah, Log Horizon could be a good world to play in.
And
Especially seeing as the show itself very much centers on one part of Japan, and they mentioned a couple times that, like, the whole fucking planet's been rendered in this world.
Yep.
Like, you could set it anywhere.
Apparently, there's a side story that is set around one of the a character trying to get from Europe back to Japan.
That's pretty awesome. I would watch that.
It's I think it's only in manga form right now, but
Right.
no idea if it'll. Who knows? It might get adapted into anime at some point.
The show did do pretty well in Japan, so.
Well, they got a second season before the first season ended, and it was on NHK, which is one of these small Japanese stations. This was actually basically unheard of.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god, it got a second season. It was that big. It was huge.
All right then.
And in my opinion, with good reason. But yeah, I mean, there are tons of game worlds out there, like shows and movies and such that haven't been adapted that I think would work well. And I think, some of them would work better than others, as we've said.
Mad Max is a universe I fucking love, but I don't know how much fun the game would be.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Honestly, so yeah, I'm not sure how well. I agree. It's not really. It wouldn't be my thing. I wouldn't enjoy it personally.
Right.
Similarly, well, I think it would work very well, and I know people have adapted it for role-playing games. I personally probably wouldn't enjoy it that much, but the universe that Conan the Barbarian is set in. I think it's I enjoy reading some of the stories and such, and I enjoyed the movie. There was one Conan the Barbarian movie. I do not discuss the other ones.
What? You don't like the one where he fights the vagina monster and pulls its horn off?
The other Conan movies are not very good. Let's just put it that way. Hell, Conan the Barbarian isn't very good, but
Conan the Barbarian is fucking amazing, and I will hear no disparaging remarks regarding it. That movie is part of my childhood.
oh, it's an enjoyable movie, but it's not a good movie.
I'll hear no disparaging remarks regarding Conan the Barbarian. The end. It's up there with friggin' The Road Warrior for me.
I can understand that, although The Road Warrior is a better movie.
It's a fucking awesome movie. Thunderdome, yeah, it sort of loses itself once he ends up outside of Thunderdome.
But yeah, actually, just thinking about it, there's a movie franchise, and the fact that it's a franchise hurts me, that I think is that I enjoy. The first movie in the series is widely beloved, although I don't think it's actually that good a movie. In fact, I don't think it's a very good movie at all. And as much as there are like elements I think would be really good for a game, I don't think it would work very well overall as a game.
Are you talking about Highlander?
Well spotted, Eric.
It was one of a few things, and I figured I'd go with the obvious one first.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure how well Highlander would translate into a game because I could see it working out really well as an as a computer RPG.
Sure.
Not a multiplayer one, because the whole idea is you're tracking down other Highlanders and fighting them for their head lightning.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, yeah. As much as I did enjoy Highlander, it is not a good movie.
yeah, I'd have to agree with that.
It's badly paced.
Christopher Lambert is not a good.
Oh my God,
actor.
he's a terrible actor. He is
He
bad.
does have Clancy Brown like devouring all the scenery though.
Yes, and Sean Connery is kind of fun, but
And Sean Connery is drunk the entire time, obviously.
all right. Oh, okay. That's an interesting question. Our friend Peter Shaw, Clark One in the chat asks, "What about MechWarrior / BattleTech campaigns? Don't they usually revolve around relatively minor events on a quote global end quote because galactic, I guess, scale?
Right.
Not they necessarily have to. How would you characterize that as a genre? That's actually interesting as a genre.
That's I hadn't thought of that, but that's largely how I'd run an Iron Kingdom's military campaign. Is yeah, you're in other parts of the front and stuff's happening. How would I do that as a genre? That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, as a general rule of thumb, the players in again, since it's part of a large universe, and again, when I
And BattleTech's fucking huge.
Right.
Like,
it's a big galaxy. I would definitely say, and this is actually the case in most games. When I say the player character, I prefer games where the player characters are sort of important to the world. I actually have no problem with games where it's the player characters are important to their part of the world,
yeah.
and that can be very local. Like if you are intentionally setting a game set around one city, the fact they're not having an impact on the world as a whole, as long as they're having some impact in the city, that's fine. And simply in BattleTech, the player characters are,
They are saving the world. Just one world out of dozens.
well, not even necessarily saving the world. They're doing whatever it is. If they're part of the military, they're doing military work. Then it's a military campaign. That's fine.
yeah.
And if they're mercenaries, it's still a military campaign, but they're mercs, so they're taking mercenary jobs and such. But you have to have some sort of plot thread for there to be there beyond just you took another contract. You are going out and fighting more, going out and doing more fighting. You need to have an actual plot thread. Otherwise, otherwise you're basically just having a sort of thin role playing veneer over a BattleTech camp, over playing BattleTech, the tabletop game, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
I'll be honest, I kind of dig that because it gets my tactical war game in with my role playing,
Absolutely.
and that's not at all why I'm in love with Iron Kingdoms. Not in the least bit. Nope.
But my point being, though, is that in all the BattleTech games, MechWarrior / BattleTech games we've done, there's been an overall actual sort of story going on in addition to that. That's actually an important story. It may not have far-reaching implications for the galaxy as a whole, but it's important for the player characters and important to the part of the galaxy that they're operating in, and where they are, and what they do has impact. Does that make any sense?
That makes sense.
Okay. Again, that's sort of my. This is all personal preferences. There are people who prefer games on a much smaller scale than I do, and that's perfectly fine. I just massively prefer games where the players have. I prefer games where the players are big damn heroes. I can say that flat out. I mean,
I really like small scale stuff, but yeah.
They're both fun, but it's
Yeah.
just my personal preference for games when I'm running is that the player characters are,
They're important. One of the things I actually really like about some games is playing in where you're just average. You're just schmuckos doing your thing. Obviously not average, otherwise you wouldn't be like running around friggin' like steam jacks and power armor or what have you. And suddenly you realize you're important. That dawning realization is an awesome moment.
Oh, absolutely. That's great. And I think that's a great way to structure a game.
Suddenly you're important.
Absolutely. And I think that's actually a lot of games like the MechWarrior games that I've run. The one I ran with you guys on Tuesdays, that actually happened to you guys.
And that was awesome. Suddenly we're important.
I mean, you weren't like, the biggest movers shakers, but you guys stumbled across important information that was very important and useful for the big movers and shakers.
Yes.
And would shape how things would go forward. And I really enjoyed that about that game.
Yeah. I also really liked completely driving the Jade Falcons insane by using their own shit against them.
Yep, that was
fun.
I enjoyed that game immensely. I wish I actually I would consider restarting that game at some point, but I know for a fact I've lost all my notes for it.
Right.
So I would take a lot of work for me to reconstruct everything at this point. A lot of them are on my computer, and the file got foobarred. It was on my old computer, so
poop. Oh well.
Yeah, I could reconstruct most of it, but yeah, I'd probably end up having to rename a bunch of the NPCs and other stuff because
I remember Nikolai Malthus showed up. I remember him being a big deal.
It wasn't actually him. It was someone who's similar to him, though.
Okay.
I don't think I actually threw any actual BattleTech sort of plot NPC characters at you guys. A lot of them are mentioned in background stuff, but
yeah.
But like you guys never met any of like the. Yeah, you didn't meet Malthus. I know that. You've got some other Jade Falcon lunatic.
Yeah, and he was fun to fuck with. He was lots of fun to fuck with.
Yeah.
Oh, so you bunch of deserters and traitors are back, huh? Oh, that's nice to see you. We didn't leave. We've been holding shit together. Thanks a lot.
Oh, God. So, I think, yeah, that was a fun game. I would love to get back to it, but as I said, I've lost all my notes, and I'd have to come up.
I'm not even sure where the major is right now, honestly.
Yeah. At any rate, I think that's going to be it for this week.
Then, honestly, we ended up just completely overpowered after a point. Like...
Eric?
Yeah?
That's so not a problem.
Yeah, it's true. You can just blow up our mechs.
Uh-huh. So, yeah, you got all this great tech. Okay, I start throwing more clan mechs at you.
Oh no, Big Bad's been destroyed. Mom's gonna be so pissed.
Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. That's going to be it for this week. Before we go, any last thoughts on how much of a published game world to use?
I think we covered it pretty well. It's like you've got a bunch of resources there. Use them. Just don't go completely whole hog overboard on them.
Right.
Like, yeah.
But yeah, basically, my take on it is, frankly, feel free to use anything and everything in the published game worlds, but use your discretion.
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't done it a lot, move carefully. Err on the side of underusing some the big NPCs and big events.
Yeah.
Over overusing it. Err on the side of caution. I think that's sort of my takeaway.
Yeah, just having part of the thing is just having them come across the aftermaths of big events.
Yep.
Which I did in the Tuesday Iron Kingdoms game. Again, more for my own amusement.
Right. Again, this varies by group, and if your group is a group that would absolutely love to pieces interact with the big movers and shakers, go for it.
Yeah.
If you guys are having fun, it's fine.
Yeah, and that's the important thing. Make sure everyone's enjoying themselves.
Yep. But that's going to be it for this week. Thanks for watching. We usually save time at the end of each show for questions from the viewers. We didn't have any this week, so that's why we did our little riff here at the end. But if you do have questions you'd like answered on the show, please do send them to us. Our email address is surlygrognards@yahoo.com, surlygrognards@yahoo.com. Or you can post them on our forums, which you can find at mechagm.forumer.com. If you got feedback for us, constructive criticism, undying praise, what have you, we love getting that also. Tell us how we can improve the show. We really love to hear that sort of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing is pretty awesome.
If you've got suggestions for show topics, send them to us, either to the email address or to our forums. We love those even more than we love the constructive feedback, really. And that's saying something.
Yeah.
And as I said, if you've got questions or just want to, what have you, hit us up at those places. We'll keep an eye on them. Additionally, I tweet out when the show's going to go live. We record the show every Monday night at 7 p.m. Eastern here on twitch.tv/mechagm. But if we have to delay or take a week off or what have you, I will tweet it out on my Twitter. So my Twitter handle is @mechagm. Keep an eye on that, and you'll know when the show is going to be going live. If you enjoyed the show, feel free to check out earlier episodes, which you can find on my blog, which you can find at mechagm.blogspot.com. Or a bunch of the episodes have been uploaded to YouTube at this point, which you can find at youtube.com/mechagm. That's basically everything at this point, I think.
I think so, yeah.
Excellent. So, thanks for watching. Hope you all had fun, and hope you guys got some useful information out of this. Yeah.
Bye.
Anyways, keep on gaming, guys. We'll see you guys soon. Bye.